What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Couple on Fire podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk all about how to handle that toxic family member. You know who you are. And that's coming up
right now.
What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome to today's show. Listen, if you've never joined us before, we're old ex-rodeo clowns. No, I'm just kidding. We're not actually ever that. We were a lot of things back in the day, but we are not that. We are a Christian couple, and we are on fire for the Lord and for change in life. And so this show right here, if you're interested about taking anything about your faith, family, or future to the next level, you have tuned into the right place. We talk about all different types of stuff. We talk about addiction. We talk about how to help yourself when it comes to taking care of your own health, your mental health, your physical health. And we also get to talk about all different other types
and
of
blended families
topics and blended families. So today we're actually going to talk about toxic family members. So if you could right now, if you don't mind, maybe you could hit a share, like, or subscribe if this is something that's going to be interesting to you. And before we dive in about these nasty, toxic family members, what's on your mind?
Well, for those of you that don't know,
well,
we did move my youngest, but combined our youngest into college, and it's bittersweet. So he is at Eastern Michigan and for starting his freshman year, and it's going to be an adjustment for everybody because he is our last one. So that's really been the big change recently that we've had.
Yeah, well, so the thing is too, right? So he's about an hour and 15 minutes away from our house. If you live in Michigan, you understand we live in Davison, which is just outside of Flint. And then he's in Ypsi, which is just outside of Ann Arbor. So you can kind of have an understanding of where he's located. So, he is the youngest out of all of them, right? And so you know how hard it is when you have to move the baby, right? The baby is always the hardest to move, right? Right? It's always the hardest now. He'll be coming home on the weekends. At least that's what he says, right? And so you never know. Being in college, he may change his mind, but that's what his request is as of right now, is for him to come home on the weekends. So we'll be picking him up on the weekends and bringing him home. So he'll be home on the weekends, which is nice. And my son right now is finishing his senior year in school, college, and so he's doing a small commute to Lansing. And so he's here right now full time. So we're not empty nesters just yet.
We're on a weird cusp.
Yeah, but we're really on the verge, right? Really, really close to being on the verge. So anyways, we want to talk about toxic family members, right? How to handle a toxic family member. There is a proper way, really there is. And I really think, and I feel like people really struggle with that because we have a hard time branding specific family members as toxic, right? We just want to say that that's just how we are. That's just how we get along or don't get along. But if we're really willing to kind of step back and look at the whole thing, we all have some form of toxic family member. And so we really want to talk about that because Christy and I have had to deal with this our own selves over the years.
Well, and we all have our own, as humans, toxic qualities too.
I don't. But maybe some people do, but not me. I am not the toxic family member. So we're all clear on that.
So depending on who you're talking to, I mean, there may be someone in my family on my side that thinks I'm toxic, right? Like if they don't believe in God,
right?
And
see through the problem.
Based off their perception, though, I could be perceived as toxic. So I don't think there's any perfect way to handle someone that is toxic to you, especially in family, because it's not somebody that you can just like stop usually being around. But I do think it's important to understand how to deal with it when we have it. I think we all have someone in our families growing up that, based off of what you're talking about, their toxicity to you may be a little bit different. Like some people, maybe you just have to cut off contact with altogether. But some people, maybe it's like, okay, I just have to only deal with them occasionally and I have to have specific parameters set around it. So it just depends.
Yeah, I want to lick your face.
You do?
I do. I like licking your face. So first point that we want to make about that topic right there, number one, is you have to learn how to not engage, right? Don't engage. And I think that to me is the hardest thing to do because we feel like we need to defend ourselves.
It's the hardest for him.
Maybe I am the toxic one.
It's easy for me just to be like, delete, block, whatever. Like, I'm not engaging with you. And the more I allow you into my space, the more I do, it makes me want to. So I don't even want to have that temptation. So I'll just delete, block, whatever it needs. And then I don't have the temptation anymore to do it. He doesn't do that. And he likes to know like what they're going to say and what
I've
they're going
gotten
to do.
way
You have gotten better.
better.
I'm just better than you. That's all.
Well,
When it comes to this.
which honestly, then if we talk about who won the lottery here, I did. If she's better, then I'm the one that
Only
actually is winning.
specific. You're better with than me at other.
Oh, I
specific-
am?
Yeah.
Like
We'll get to
the things you don't care about, right? I got you.
No.
No, I'm just
Stop being a smart aleck. It's not nice.
It is important though that we understand that there is toxic behaviors that happen, and sometimes we feel like there's a need to defend ourselves. And I think that's exactly what Christy was saying. Is like we have this innate like we have to defend ourselves, and I've had to learn over the years because Christy is far the other side of that fence, right? If she feels like somebody's toxic, she just stays completely away from it, right? And so I think there is a happy medium that we have to understand that is in there. So we don't necessarily have to completely remove people out of our lives necessarily that are toxic. We just have to define how we're going to engage with that person and what ways we're going to engage. So when things get toxic, we have to not engage,
Right.
which means we can't sit there and try to defend ourselves, which is something I've had to try to learn hard over the years because I'm like, no, I have something to say to that.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's unhealthy.
Right.
Because
It
you can't
can be,
win.
yes.
Right. Because you can't win
Mhm.
when you're dealing with somebody that's toxic because their intentions are very different. They're not about solving what's going on.
Mhm.
Right. They're about pain.
Yeah. And sometimes there's a little piece of them that gets kind of like excited when you start engaging with them.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it. They like the engagement though, and they start getting like all like antsy about it because they want to get into that back and forth with you.
Mhm.
And that is something that I think, especially if you have a family member, I've had this happen where a family member just completely, they choose to cut off all ties with you. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they'll randomly contact you about something that's none of their business, right? In your life at all. And it's like, I don't need to respond to this because I'm fine. I'm good. Like, I have my life under control. I have my relationships under control.
Mhm.
I don't need your guidance on it. We never talk. You cut me off. The fact that you feel like all of a sudden you need to contact me about this, unless you're contacting me to say, hey, let's make amends. Hey, can we talk? We haven't spoken like months. A healthy grown up,
Mhm.
hey, I want to mend this relationship and have a relationship with you.
Yeah.
I don't need to engage with you on that level. Our relationship has been dissolved. Like a marriage has been dissolved, right? So unless there is something pertinent about us having to communicate back together, please don't contact me anymore. But I don't even need to respond to it.
Which is true. I think what ends up happening, which makes it really hard when we're talking about toxic family members and not engaging, is let's say that we are in somewhere where we do see each other more often
Yeah.
and it is toxic and they start to come at you or ask you something that you know that is intentional to try to rile up or get, kind of get your guff in the moment. I think it's really important that we can simply just look at the person and say and be like, I'm not talking about that right now, or I'm not going there, or I'm just not. And I think it's real easy for us to be able to, I think that's a hard thing to do, but I think we have to get better at making it easy to say, no, we're just not. I'm just not doing that. I'm not going there. I'm not going to talk about this. I'm not going to argue about this. There's a lot of times what will happen, I've noticed, that in families, when there's a lot of people in a family, a lot of siblings in a family, somebody, when everybody's together, will drop a bomb in the middle, right? And it's like everybody wants to engage around this one toxic thing from this one toxic person. And you have to be willing to stand your ground and being like, I'm not talking about that. I'm not going there. And everybody can get mad about it if they want, but I'm not.
Well, and I think there is a sense of pride in us. And this is something that I learned in my family growing up. Some people I've seen, like, let's say a family member drops a bomb in the middle of everybody. Sometimes we are thinking in our head, like, I'm not leaving this party, this family event. I have every right to be here, just like that person has a right
Yeah.
to be here. They're the ones. But I care more about, like, in one instance, my grandparents. If my grandparents at my grandparents' house, it's them. I care more, like, if I'm going to stay and even try to ignore or not engage with this person, and that person's going to continue to pick or try to escalate or try to get other people involved, where someone else even tries to come to my defense, and then more and more people are coming. It's like I will remove myself in the situation
Yeah.
for the sanctity of the family unit, and I'll deal with that later. I've had to do that before when my grandparents were alive, is then go back to my grandparents' house and say, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I chose to leave. I know that saddened you, but if I would have stayed, even though I'm not the one that did anything wrong in that instance, it's still my presence aggravated the situation, and I'm not above our family unit. I'm not going to sit and get prideful and dig my heels in
Mhm.
and be like, "No, I'm staying here cuz I have the right to stay here just like you have the right to stay here."
Yeah.
That's not doing anybody any favors either.
Yeah, when we talk about not engaging, I think you're making a great point. When you talk about not engaging, we have to take the higher road.
Yeah.
We have to take the higher road. Okay, we can't say you need to respect me right now.
Yeah.
No, they don't. Nobody needs to respect you, right? Respect is not, that's not how respect is handled or done, right? When we're talking about family members that are toxic, they don't care about what you want, they care about what they want. And
Right.
so when we talk about don't engage, we have to be willing to disengage. And sometimes that means leaving family functions, staying away from certain people and things in certain times, and just being healthy in your way. Because we have to understand, like, some treating ourselves in a way that is above reproach means that we're not willing to put ourselves in positions to fall to these things.
Right.
And that's really hard to do because we think, like Christy said, our pride gets the best of us, and we're like, no, I deserve. I should be able to be here. You should be the one that leaves.
Yeah.
That you're not wrong in thinking that way, but that's not how it works. And
Right.
so when we
You have
talk
to
about,
humble yourself.
you have to be willing to humble yourself, and solving the problem sometimes is just removing yourself from the situation and not engaging in it.
And many
That's
times the
hard.
people that want to engage in those, they're unhealed people. They have like some deep hurts. And a lot of the times that's coming out because they're dissatisfied with something else in their life or something else that's going on. Just because you're family doesn't mean you know everything that's going on in their life. So it is important just to remember, like, no, I'm not. And if I need to leave, I'll leave. I'll make it up to the people that I'm leaving that I need to make it up to later,
Yeah.
you know?
So the second point, before I put it up here, this is one point right here. This is the whole reason why Christy has found success in the secular world. Okay. This is what she is. This is her superpower right here. Stick to the facts. Christy is so good about remaining calm and sticking to the facts that it really makes people really mad, because emotions is what fires up and makes something that you're incapable of handling, is the emotion of it. If you're willing to stick to the facts, it makes a difference. So, wife, that's your point to talk about.
Well, I think it's important to what you have to remember the facts for yourself. And the whole reason that is when someone tries to engage with you or someone tries to bring up something, it's usually from an emotional response for them. So they're saying something like, "I never hear from you. You're the one that's never around. You're the
You
one
don't care
that's
about
never,
me.
yeah, you're the one that's never helping out, or you're the one that's never," and you have to remain calm in that instance. And okay, what's the last year have I been? Am I being a good, you know, daughter, wife, sister, all of these things, and be confident in that. And then also, even if the person is, maybe they're like, "You have sucked at being a sister for the last year of my life." You're right, I probably have. If that's true, I'm not gonna get upset about it. Like, you're right, I've had a lot of things going on in my life. I haven't checked in on you like a good older sister would, and I need to get better at that. That's something I'm gonna focus on. Can we set up a date maybe in the next month or 2 for us to get together? Like, it's very, don't take offense to it. Don't have an emotional response to it. Stick to the facts. And if even though they're screaming at you in an emotional way sometimes, if what they're saying is factual, own up to it.
Yeah.
If what they're saying is not factual,
Yeah.
you can say, "I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry. Like, I would want us to have a great relationship, and I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm pretty confident in who I am as a person. And if you want to discuss it more, then we can discuss it more." But it's easier said than done. And I've learned to get really good at it from failing a lot at it. But it does seem like the higher something goes in escalation, the calmer I end up getting, because I don't want to get to that level where I'm losing control or I'm going to say something that I regret. and I will call that out. So
Which
I
is an emotional response.
the things that
Yeah.
has worked the best for me is saying aloud the feelings that you're feeling. So even from the other person. So if the person is coming at you, you call it out. You seem like you're really upset right now. And then the person will be like, I am upset. Okay, well, let's talk about that. And it starts to diffuse the situation.
Mhm.
Or you say, hey, I'm really working on not getting defensive right now because I really want to hear what you're saying. And that will diffuse you. Like if you feel like you're going to start to get defensive or start to get angry, you say it out loud. It changes something in your mind to where it levels you back out. It's worked wonders for me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times with, like, when it comes to keeping to the facts, I think, we if we have to couple that with disengaging or not
Yeah.
engaging with somebody, is
Yeah.
sometimes it's just telling our own selves the facts.
Yeah.
What you will find sometimes, though, with a toxic family member that is really on their game is you'll start talking facts and they'll say, "Well, this is my truth."
Hmm.
Right? And someone's truth doesn't mean that is the truth, right? And we have to be very careful on that because that is just a higher level tactic for people to throw you off and get you to come back in an emotional stance in that. Because someone else's truth doesn't mean that it is the truth, right? And so if you're a Christian, you can understand this on a really deep level, right? We don't have to like all the things that the Bible tells us that we're supposed to do and the way that we're supposed to honor God, right? But we don't get to violate that and say, well, this is my truth and I get to do it this way. This is the way that I believe and these are the things that I believe in. That doesn't make it a fact though. And that's why I like the word fact and not truth so much better because facts, they're undisputed, right?
Right.
It is what it is. Is there
Well,
gravity? There is no truth in that. It is a fact. You don't get to
right.
say, I get to jump off a building and today I don't believe in this. It doesn't work like that. It's so I think that, when we talk about someone that you're getting in an argument with and you're talking about facts, if they're skilled, they're going to be like, okay, well, let me tell you about my truth. Okay, well, that's still an emotion, is what that is. It's not a fact.
Well, and what people still, if they said that to me, get upset about is, okay, that's your truth, and my truth is this, and my recollection of this instance is this. So we can agree to disagree because we both were there. We both have a different perception about what happened, and we can agree to disagree because I'm not going to change your mind and you're not going to change my mind, and that's okay. Like, how
Yep.
can we move forward from here, if at all? And there's, many things in the 7 habits of highly effective people that talk about how to do negotiations with, there's win-win scenarios, win-lose scenarios, or win-win no deal. And if you stay confident in the things that the boundaries that you're setting or the facts that you're presenting, you are allowed to look at that person and say, okay, well, we don't have a deal, type of thing. You don't have to use those
No
words,
deal.
but we can't come to a solution here. So I don't need to do business with you, or I don't need to engage with you anymore because we can't come to a win-win
Mhm.
situation. But you do have to be confident in the things that you're presenting. You have to be confident in yourself. And even if they start saying, well, that's not what I think, and that's my truth is this, and my truth is that. What a huge freeing thing for me is people don't have to respect you. Right? Like when people you have that feeling like they should respect me or they have to respect me or they should be more kind or they
They
should.
should be on my side.
No one has to do anything.
Mhm.
Everyone is allowed, there's free will to act, talk to you, say whatever they want to say. It's up to you of how you receive it, how you respond to it, how you continue to engage or
To
not
allow it.
engage with it. Like that
Yeah.
that's what you can control. You can't control what someone says to you, what someone thinks about you, how someone's going to come at you. Those are things you can't control. So you have to remember to stick with the things that you can control,
Which is the facts.
which is the facts,
Stick to
your
the facts.
emotions, all of those
And
things.
that leads perfectly into the third point because the third point is all about setting boundaries, right? Setting boundaries. These are something I think is extremely hard for people because, we've talked about boundaries on our show before, but boundaries are something that we set around ourselves, not around other people, right? So we set them up around ourselves and say, these are the boundaries. These are my boundaries. These are not your boundaries, right? These don't need to be someone else's boundaries. These are our boundaries that we choose. And I think that becomes really difficult because a lot of times people go, well, I'm just letting you know I'm setting a boundary around you.
Yeah, no, you do not do that.
I'm just letting you know. And the next thing you know, that's going to blow up in your face. Okay.
Yeah.
So setting boundaries, I think, is paramount. I think you should set boundaries with everybody. Number one.
Healthy boundaries, yeah.
Yeah, healthy, of course, right? But toxic family members, you have got to set some boundaries, especially if it's people that you are going to engage with, right?
And I think it's important to understand if a family member rubs you the wrong way, don't just label them as toxic to make yourself feel better. Like, why are they rubbing you the wrong way? Are they speaking truth to you that, like, I used an example earlier, like, hey, over the past year, you've really sucked at being a sister. Oh, all of a sudden, oh, you're toxic. And no, it's, you have to do a self check on it. Don't just label people. I think boundaries get a bad rap too, because like Josh said, people will be like, I'm setting a boundary. This is my boundary. I'm not allowing you to cross it. Well, that puts people on defense and it can come across as really rude. That's not loving. So when you're sometimes you have to combine all of these and compound them. So if you're confident in yourself, you're sticking with the facts, you know that you're not having an emotional response to something, and you are like, okay, I need to kind of disengage from this person. You know in your mind what boundaries you're allowed to. If a person is attacking you physically, it should be a no-go. But verbally, then you can say that's in your own head. That's something that I don't allow people to talk to me that way anymore.
Mhm.
I don't allow people to spread lies about me anymore. So I'm not going to engage with that person anymore. And that's a boundary that I'm going to set. A lot of times emotions get involved though. Time goes by and it's kind of, we forget how bad the hurt was, or we forget how bad the disrespect was, and sometimes that is needed to go and have reconciliation with people. But a lot of times, if it's truly a toxic person that's spreading lies about you, or a family member that's being abusive towards you, or just saying cruel things to you, being manipulative, all of this stuff, you are just going back to an abusive relationship. Emotional abuse is still abuse. And you have to understand, like, no, this is something I said. It was a non-negotiable for me in my life and what I allowed in my circle of influence. And I'm not allowing that anymore in there.
Yeah, what I've noticed over the years of my own life is that the biggest downfall of setting boundaries is the consistency with that boundary.
Yeah.
Right? We can get real froggy and get, just like get pumped up and ready, like, yeah, I'm gonna set this boundary, I'm gonna set this boundary. And then you do a little bit of really hard work and it really rocks the boat, but then the person changes a little bit, which they've always done in the past, and you've always been through this, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna soften up on this boundary now. And then you're right back into the fly trap, right? And so consistency in this boundary makes all the difference, right? You know, if it's a family member, you've been around them long enough, you understand them well enough to know, okay, this boundary right now, not saying that my boundary can't change over time, like Christy just said, but it needs to be based on facts, right? Not on feelings, and based on like, oh, they're being nice to me today, so I'm going to change my boundary. Or, I need my grandma to watch my kids, and so I'm going to allow her to treat me like crap because I need her to watch my kids this weekend because I want to leave, And it's like, these are the things you cannot be willing to do, because then nothing ever changes. This toxicity just continues. People aren't stupid. When they're toxic and they know that they have an upper hand in a relationship with somebody, they like that firm grip, right? They like that. And they'll soften back a little bit, just like the ocean does with the tide. It'll fall back a little bit. But when it comes back, it's usually with rage, and it's much larger and stronger than before. And so understand that if you're not being consistent with your boundaries, don't expect them to work.
No, and I had something I was going to say off of it, but I forgot.
Oh, you want to move on?
I did. I forgot. I'm like, oh man, that's so good. And you were talking.
I thought you were thinking I was saying something so good.
And that's what made me forget, because I'm like, oh, I need to listen to what he's saying. Oh, he's saying something very insightful. And then I forgot what I was saying.
It'll probably come
back. What I was thinking.
Let's talk about number 4 then. Number 4, the last point is blood isn't thicker. And most people don't like to hear that.
No, they don't. And you should Google where the blood is thicker than water, where it came from, type of thing.
Google.
Because I think it's been taken out of context. I haven't done enough research to solidify that it's factual, what I initially looked up, but I think you should Google it and do some of your own research. But the family is, oh, I remember.
Hot dog, there it is.
Yes. So This goes into this too, though, too. Blood isn't always thicker than water in the setting boundaries. Unfortunately, as humans, we fall back into old patterns when psychologically, when we go back to relationships without even thinking about it. We don't even realize it's happening. So, you know how people say kids act completely different around the mother, but out in public or around other people, it's they act like super polite, and
Our
then all of a sudden
kids.
they get around the mom and the mom's like, "I never see that." And they're like psycho crazy. We're like that as humans as we go on in our life. It's very, very rare. Like once we get to where this is how we engage. I'm going to use drinking as an example. You quit drinking, especially you changed every single thing that you did,
Mhm.
right? And it's because if you continue to try to hang around those same people, put yourself in that same situation, you would have just automatically found yourself falling back into the same old
Yeah, I'm not
patterns
stronger than that, yeah.
without it. And it's the same thing with after you're around family members your whole life, sometimes it's your parents. You're growing up in this toxic back and forth type of relationship where you guys treat each other like crap and then you come back and then you treat each other like crap and then you come back. It's a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times people don't learn until they lose. Like that's how why like you say your pain has to become greater than this to make a change. That's true with normally anything. Your pain has to become greater than what you're trying to quit before you make a change in your life. There's been tons of studies done. So if you set a boundary and then that person changes a little bit and then you just say, "Oh, okay, like we can do it again." You guys will fall back in the same old patterns. They may have been able to put on a white knuckle like change
Mhm.
for a couple weeks, but you guys will fall back into your same negative patterns of communication, your same negative patterns of how you
Mhm.
treat one another without even realizing it. So that's why the work is on you. Like when you're dealing with a toxic family member, you're setting the boundary around yourself. It's your responsibility to hold that boundary. It's your responsibility to stick with facts. It's your responsibility to not have emotional responses to things. It's your responsibility to still be loving. It's still your responsibility. All of it is on you. And that's where the hard work comes in because a lot of people aren't strong enough to not engage, to stick to the facts, to not have an emotional response, to allow you guys to go back to that negative pattern.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that I've seen over the years that is the saddest to me when it comes to these toxic relationship is this whole like parent child relationship when
Mm,
the parent is the one that's toxic. It's so sad to watch because the kids will always come back
mm,
no matter how toxic the parent is. Why? Because we innately want to be loved and we innately want our parents to desire us, right? And need us in a special way, right? And have this special relationship.
mm.
And we want that. We all yearn for that. No matter who we are, we all yearn for that to some degree. And sometimes though we've seen where the parents, a lot of times we see where the parents just are toxic and they will ruin you if you
Mhm.
allow it. And pulling away from that is really hard because a lot of times the parents like, well, I don't care about your other community. I'm your parent and my blood is thicker than water, right? And it's this whole attitude around it. And that doesn't matter because the people that should be the best for you aren't always the best for you. And we have to be willing to understand that and be willing to do what it takes to do what's best for ourselves in that situation. And it's usually a very unfair thing when it comes to toxicity and when it comes to parent toxicity.
Yeah, and I do have
Very unfair.
I have something to say to that too because many, many times I have toxic people in my life and my parents both were some of those people. And a lot of times with the toxic people, they're the ones going around rallying troops to be with them. And they're not the ones that are confident. That's a true red flag of a toxic person. They're going around and they're trying to tell their truth and their side and their story to every other person that also has contact with you to try to rally troops around them to come and break down your boundaries, break down your confidence, break down maybe the decisions that you had, or break down the hurt that actually, the truth that actually, the facts that actually happened. And then you find yourself where you're telling the other people that are coming to you on their defense, like, listen, I don't want to get into this back and forth. You weren't there. And then puts you into a situation where you're having to pick what you think or what you believe is the truth when you'll never really know. You weren't there. And I personally beg people to please, I don't want our relationship to end. Please stop being malicious. Please stop being hurtful. Please stop being cruel, and vindictive. And let's try to work this out. I understand you're angry. Please stop. Please stop. Please stop. And they continue to, no, I just want to hurt you, hurt you, hurt you, hurt you. That's not family. I may have blood running through my veins that's the same as those people to make me biologically connected to them, but that's not what family is.
That's right.
Family is there, like, we are going to have hurt feelings sometimes, but we're going to always have each other's back. We're always going to come together. We're always going to talk about it. And I will never leave you. It's not conditional love. It is unconditional. And this is where we're going to be. We're in it together. And we can't expect marriages to last and to stick through it when families can't even get this right. Parents can't even get this right with their kids. Yeah. And it's something I'm super passionate about, and it saddens me. But again, it goes back to people needing to get healed. Our parents were kids once too. They had to go through their own things. But now that they're adults, just like I'm an adult, I need to take responsibility of how I treat my kids and what I put on and the trauma that I put on my kids. And that's my job. And that is a parent's job. No matter how old the kid is, it's still the parent's job to be setting the example.
And sometimes we have to be willing to burn the boat.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to burn the boat and find a community of people that are willing to not be toxic in a way that's destroying to you, to help them be brighter. We've heard it so many times, the analogy of we can't allow our flame to be dim to make other people's bright. And a toxic family member that's a perfect analogy of what it is. That person most likely feels like you put their light out or you put their light down. And if that's not the truth, then it doesn't matter if they're blood related or not. It doesn't matter. You need to find your tribe, find your community, find your people that actually want to see you thrive. And toxic family do not want to see you thrive.
Those are the most dangerous. I think toxic family members are the most dangerous for people.
They are, because they're the hardest to get away from, because we can't feel justified in doing the things that we just talked about. We can't feel justified in it. It's my parents. It's my sister, it's my brother, right? It's my uncle, it's my aunt, it's my kid, it's whoever. And we have to be willing to say, hey, you know what? I need to do what's best for me in this situation, as long as it's not hurting other people, right? And taking care of yourself in a way of avoiding and managing toxic relationship within your family is exactly doing that. And nobody's saying it's easy. It comes with a lot of pain. It comes with a lot of loneliness at times. It comes with a lot of these things. It comes with a lot of unfairness. So
it does. It does.
How to handle toxic family members. You want to read the 4 points again?
Yeah. Don't engage. Stick to the facts. Set boundaries. And blood isn't always thicker.
That's right. All right, guys. I want to thank you so much for being here. If this was enlightening at all, or you enjoyed it, at least please hit the subscribe button, depending on where you at, or like or share if you don't mind. We would really appreciate that. If you are listening to this and you're on Apple iTunes, please stop on by and give us a rating. We would love that as well. We like to be here every single Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern live, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.